Are there lower budget lab ideas that teachers can use when they are tight on funds and technology? And besides lab simulations, how can labs be conducted affordably with little cost? Other resources that you can use for free would be good.
I think the best way to approach this might be kind of, lab by lab. This is Ryan again. I just did the photosynthesis leaf disc lab with my 9th and 10th graders. That cost $2.50. It did not cost anything. And to be perfectly honest, I think some of these newer labs are, even though the quantitative analysis is expensive, the quantitative analysis, well, it's energetically expensive. It takes time. The labs themselves are really cheap. I would look for labs where you can really, kind of rely on Walmart, whether it's photosynthesis, whether it's an enzyme catalysis lab using papaya and Jello. That's really cheap. Artificial selection, you could use a simulation. HHMI has lots of great resources where students can get access to real data and then graph that data. And then again, I know it sounds like a broken record, but look for the trends in that data. And that costs nothing if you can project it on a whiteboard or a smartboard, and just cost of copies if you want to have hard copies for your kids. And again, I think I got $25 per kid. I got 70 kids in the lab every year, so I've got about $1,500 to work with. So I can do everything I need to do in AP Bio inside of $750. Now, I've got legacy costs with microscopes and probeware and those kinds of things, but this isn't an expensive class. It doesn't need to be an expensive class. We do potatoes for our cell models, and potatoes are, $5 for 5 pounds, and that covers 70 kids. You kind of look for ways to be creative with the resources that you have. I'd be curious to hear what Bobbie and Lee have to say on that.
Well, I was going to say, we've got 240 kids that take AP Bio at our school, and so, we try to be fairly conservative with our resources as well. But there are some things that for us are a huge cost. Our biotech labs are expensive just because of volume. We have so many students. And I've actually somewhere generated a Google Doc with lab hacks. Here's some ways that you can save some money, to do labs, because biology shouldn't have to be an expensive course to teach. It doesn't matter what level you teach it. It shouldn't have to be an expensive course to teach. And think of ways that you can repurpose stuff that you use. I mean, I do fast plants with my kids every year, and we do the genetics, we do a genetics lab with it. We do a transpiration lab with them once they're all grown up. And so, I get a couple of different labs out of it. I get pretty good bang for my buck with some of the stuff that we do. So you just have to really kind of think outside the box about, the labs that you're doing and how can you, save money and still teach kids, a good, how to do good science.
They've both given the exact answer that I would have given. I would just say that when the new labs were rewritten from the old labs, much of the cost, I think, was reduced except for the biotechnology labs. And again, you don't have to do those specific labs. You can do the down and dirty ones, like we've said, and use much cheaper items. So I really think if you've got the budget to teach a regular biology course with a couple of exceptions, like the biotechnology stuff, I think you should be able to teach the AP labs just as well.
Thank you, guys. We're moving more into the topical questions that we received. So these are 3 questions we got on more specific topics within AP Biology. So I put them all together. The first is, I need more resources to teach cell communications. What can you tell me about that? The second is, do you want me to keep going, or do you guys want to answer each one individually?
I think it might be easier to answer them individually.
Okay.
I mean, I can jump in with the first one. Models. Make them make models. We have our kids make models of, we teach them that, we have them talk about the different, ways that cells can communicate with each other. We have them make storyboards of either a G protein linked pathway or an enzyme kinase pathway. We have them do modeling. I mean, that's big. It's huge. We have them model lots of things. If you haven't ever seen the Learn Genetics, Pathways with Friends activity, that's how we introduce cell communication with our kids and signal transduction pathways. It gets them up out of their seats. They get to move around. It's actually really silly and fun to watch them because it's awkward, especially if there's a missing part of the pathway. And then it leads to really great discussions about, well, what happens when there's a part of the pathway that's faulty or that's missing or whatever. Those are just some of the things that, we do with our students at my campus as far as cell communication goes.
I'm going to address this question. I'm going to address the plant physiology question. So y'all go ahead with the communication.
I think it's, again, another mind shift. When you think cell communication, are you thinking about a specific chapter in a textbook, or are you thinking about what it is that cells really do? Because you could teach, it's unlikely that anybody feels like they don't have enough resources to teach cell cycle and mitosis. Well, the only reason cells divide actively is because they got a signal from another cell or from the environment. So you can bring that in. Similar to the plant physiology stuff, I do get a chance to teach some plant stuff, and that's really, I cast all the major plant hormones in the context of cell signaling. If you teach neurophysiology and neural conduction pathways, you're teaching cell communication. You just need to recognize that you're already doing that and then be intentional about reminding your students, when you see, God forbid, a ligand-gated voltage channel, ligand-gated sodium channel, you're talking about cell communication, because ultimately, what is it? It's reception, transduction, response. The transduction pathway in a neuron is actually pretty straightforward. You get a change in membrane potential, which leads to an action potential, but ultimately it's cell signaling. So I would kind of turn that question back to the asker and say, it's a great question, but think about all the systems you teach where cells communicate, and then look for the examples that you use, and then work to thread those examples together for your students.